Greetings and welcome to the Mount Rushmore podcast. I'm Jeff, and I'm joined as per usual by my good friends Richard.
Hello.
And Michael.
Howdy.
These two, am I right?
Yeah, you're right.
Okay. These two, they often agree, but more frequently they disagree.
That's not right. Is that right?
I
See, you guys are disagreeing again.
I think it's right. Don't you think it's right?
Well, usually...
Okay, you said it's right, so I have to say
Okay, folks, so
it's not right.
I'm going to speak
It's
in
an
the foreground
outrage.
while they speak in the background and describe that on this podcast, Michael and Richard debate the most ubiquitous of any given topic. And the topic we chose this time around is the Mount Rushmore of unusual children's TV premises.
Bizarre. Some might even say bizarre kids TV show.
Who chose
premises. This is mine.
What would you describe?
There were a couple. I think I've watched. Basically, I only watch kids TV anymore. So as you're watching kids TV,
Michael has children. Or Richard has children.
Yeah,
They both have children.
yeah, both have. My oldest one's 10, so I've been exposed to this a lot more than Michael has, I think. And your kid's still sort of at the sort of vaguely
He's just
watching
over
TV
9
stage.
months, and like he will pop in and out of maybe once a month. We
Some
put
60
on like
minutes.
he loves it.
And
Like
Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones, yeah.
bits and pieces of Sesame Street here.
Oh,
But
okay.
he does. He's too young to watch TV.
And bizarre premises are things that you've encountered when...
Yeah, the more you watch a lot of kids' TV, the more you realize that there are some really screwed up like concepts for shows.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of had to work through that a little bit with my choices because I had some choices on here where the show itself is absolutely mental,
Yeah.
but the concept may not be that strange. It's just the
okay.
way that they did it, the way they actually presented it was
Yeah.
like kind of insane.
Yeah.
But believe me, there are enough. It feels like with kids show concepts, you can go as broad and as crazy as you possibly can, and you can still get that greenlit.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to say is I think people who make kids shows do a lot of drugs.
They got it.
Oh, absolutely.
You got it.
100%.
Yeah. Okay, well, Richard came up with the topic, so Michael begins.
Okay. All of my shows go from youngest to oldest. So as you grow up in age, maybe you'll be a young kid, a young toddler going, and then my first show, the premise, it's a British series about this weird post-apocalyptic landscape where babies have been fused with TV screens.
Whoa.
Language has been reduced to grunts, whistles, and eh-ohs. Our children are watched over by anthropomorphic vacuum cleaners.
Yes.
Right.
As the god baby smiles and coos down upon his creation.
Yes.
The show is, of course,
Doctor Who.
Teletubbies.
Oh, Teletubbies.
From 1997 to 2001. This is a show for babies. It's a show about these weird, waddling, baby-like, colorful creatures that just waddle and get into trouble and make nonsense words. And the babies frickin' love them.
It is a show that is designed for like an 18-month-old.
Yes. Where all they're responding to is color
Yeah.
and sounds and
repetition.
yeah.
Kids that age love repetition.
Yeah.
So a lot of the times they would do the again, and then they would just play basically the same thing that you had just seen. They would just like replay it.
Yeah, when you peekaboo is really complicated for you,
Yeah.
then you can repeat Tinky Winky rolling down a hill over and over again.
Somebody got paid to write that, by the way.
Having a
FYI.
9-month-old, I can appreciate a show like this.
Yeah.
Where the show it's weird. It was only on for 4 years, but they put out 400 something episodes. Because I guess you just gang tape them all back to back, and you're just like, let's just roll. Let's see what we get, and let's cut it up. But like Richard said, it's the repetition. Like my son Felix likes doing the same things over and over. He likes silly things, and he likes putting a block in the choo-choo train over and over and over. So you can see how a show like this, it's only for, like Richard said, 18-month-olds. It's not for anyone else past that. But you watch it as, like, all of these things, I think, are why they become bizarre is that you see them through the eyes of an adult.
Yeah.
And you see these 4 weird characters with these weird things sticking on their head, and they're just so strange and foreign and human lifelike. It's so weird. And then the show tops off with this cooing baby head in the sun.
Yeah.
And you're just like, what did I watch? Like, I know that, like, this show had a little bit of like an ironic teenage, like it's cool to like the show as a teenager in a rave sort of sense.
Oh,
Yeah.
sure, yeah.
Wearing those Jinko pants or whatever.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm this show was merched to hell and back. Like there was a Tinky Winky everything. There was a
It doesn't seem like it is far off what a drug-fueled hallucinogenic hellscape would be. Like a bad trip.
Yeah, like everything's bright, big and bright, and like large shape.
Yeah, I can't imagine watching E on the show because you'd just be like, all you would do is just keep rewinding it and watching it over and over and over.
Do you feel that was this show created by? Not that we have to go into the origins, but was it created? Sesame Street featured characters that were brightly colored, primary colored characters who were covered in fabric and using mostly English, but sometimes nonsense dialogue. But it was set in a street, and it was done by the Children's Television Workshop, which we think might have used science or education backgrounds to actually create it. Was this done by educators? Do we know?
I don't know. Like, here's something that I picked up and I want to read you from Wikipedia. The show features an assortment of rituals that are performed throughout the course of every episode, such as playful interactions between the Teletubbies and the voice trumpets, the mishaps caused by the Nunu, the footage of live children displayed in the screens on the Teletubbies' stomachs, and the magical event that occurs once per episode. The event differs each time. It is often caused inexplicably and is frequently strange yet whimsical. So I think the show is just about things that happen.
Yeah.
And things happen and the babies watch them. And they're like, okay, they are now addicted to this thing.
To TV, basically.
Yes. Yeah.
They're addicted to TV. And that was one of, if I remember back in the day when when it was really popular, people were like, wait, why are you targeting 18-month-olds with a TV show? They shouldn't be watching TV in the first place. How about actually interact with them and do things instead of just letting TV be your babysitter? That was part of the controversy. Also, Tinky Winky was gay.
Yeah.
We remember that, right?
Right? Yeah. It doesn't seem... Mr. Rogers was talking about creating content for television because he knew children were watching television, and he knew that what was available to them were Three Stooges and pie fights and Uncle Milty and crass stuff. So maybe that was their intention. So cool. Opening salvo there. Richard, what's your first choice?
Okay, so my first choice is Jabberjaw.
Oh, God.
Part of the... you could really pick almost any Hanna-Barbera.
Yeah.
Because if we get down to it, even Scooby-Doo is kind of a fucked up premise.
Yeah.
If you sit down and think about it. It's a bunch of teenagers driving around with a 250-pound Great Dane that talks.
Yeah.
And their stoner friend solving crimes. That's weird. That's a little weird, right?
Yeah.
But Jabberjaw, I think, takes weird to the next level. He is, and I will also reference Wikipedia here, a 15-foot-tall, air-breathing great white shark who is the drummer for the Neptunes.
He's the drummer.
I forgot he was the drummer, too.
Yeah.
And I was researching. I was like, oh, crap, that's right. I just remember him being a big shark that sounded like Curly from the Three Stooges.
Curly, yeah.
All of the Hanna-Barbera stuff, they just stole someone else's personality.
It's whatever voices Frank Welker could do, essentially.
Well, that was true with some of the Warner Brothers characters. We just didn't know those references. We didn't know that he
like
was...
Humphrey Bogart or something
or
like that.
So. Yeah,
Edward G. Robinson meets, or it's Ed Wynn or something like that.
Yeah, they'd always change it a little bit. I also had forgotten this was set in but I must assume is a post-apocalyptic future.
Yeah, I love it's the future of underwater.
Right. Like something, this is presaging like the concerns about global warming and the ice caps melting.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's set in 2076 and everyone has been driven to underground, underwater, civilizations. So clearly we've really screwed up the planet, and Al Gore was right, guys. and when this all comes down, the sharks are going to start talking. They're going to sound like Curly, and they're going to have, the catchphrases of Rodney Dangerfield.
Yeah.
I can't get no respect. There's just nothing in this. Where does this come from?
No one.
Who pitched this?
I imagine at the time people knew they don't know what good is, but they know what's popular. And
right.
Jaws wasn't too far off.
Yeah,
And
Jaws had just happened.
like the Universal monsters went from being horror characters to friendly characters. Maybe they figured Jaws, the shark, was now, it was time for people to find a shark they can love.
Right. I feel
And-
maybe PETA got involved here a little bit.
Yeah.
Like Love a Shark or something.
Jabberjaw wasn't also. I remember being in a half hour or an hour show with Baggy Pants and the Nitwits, which was like a cat who was acting like Charlie Chaplin.
They had, yeah. Hanna-Barbera had a lot of those. Let's take like a popular character from 50 years ago.
Yeah.
And let's just reintroduce him to the kids, and we'll just sort of make him some sort of anthropomorphic
Make him a dog.
thing, a dog
Yeah.
or whatever it happens to be.
Yeah.
I had also forgotten that this was an anti-shark society.
Oh.
That they had the robots who would come in, the shark ejectors.
Oh.
They would frequently eject Jabberjaw from whatever area or place that he was. So
Wow.
this could also be sort of a veiled, commentary on race and racism
Intolerance,
and intolerance.
Wow.
Or it could be they're just lazy. I don't know. I'd also forgotten that he could turn himself like into a trampoline or a rug.
Yeah,
He had the sort of like shape-shifting abilities. Because, again, post-apocalyptic hellscape, I guess if you're going to make the shark talk and sound like Curly, yeah, why not have him be a shapeshifter? Yeah.
This sounds like a show made by committee where nobody said no. Nobody said too much. It's like the equivalent of that time when I first got access to the soda fountain at the 7-Eleven and I decided to make a mix of all the flavors.
And it was terrible.
And it was fucking horrible.
It seems like the type of pitch meeting where a lot of these things were said with a question mark.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, maybe he could be a talking shark?
Yeah.
Oh, I know. Maybe if I don't know. Maybe he could sound like Curly from
Maybe?
Three Stooges?
Yeah.
A lot of that sort of stuff was happening, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
They just had like a board that they worked off of, and they just had like, okay, 50-year-old TV personalities.
Yeah.
Just grab one. Okay, here's an animal. Grab that one.
Arthur Gottfried, and we have a mouse.
All right, let's do a pun on that name. Throw them up together. There
Yep.
you go.
All right, Michael.
The premise of my second show, it's like the island of Dr. Moreau, but with Ben Vereen as a carnival barker. That's right. The 1986 to 1988 running Zoobilee Zoo.
Oh, wow.
I don't know this one.
I'm going to show you guys a quick picture of
Okay.
what the cast would look like.
Wow.
Oh, no.
That is
That's
Andrew Lloyd Webber-y kind of feel to it.
You know
too.
what? I have a note about cats in here.
Yeah.
Oh.
So to describe it, it looks like a bad community theater production of like The Wizard of Oz, like you said, crossed with
Cats.
or like Starlight Express.
It's hard to see Ben Vereen, but he's got like an animal muzzle.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of like bad
Yeah.
makeup happening.
Yeah, cats ruined a lot of lives, right?
Yeah.
The
Wait, do you mean
musical.
Cats and the musical?
Cats also, my cats ruin our lives.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Too. Now I understand, having a 9-month-old, that kids love animals. Like every interaction in all of the books that we read has some sort of he's at the zoo, like the bunny's going to the zoo, and we got to learn about the animals. We learn a lot about animals and what animals look like, and animals in relation to parents. But if you have but watching humans that are like these human animal hybrids, it's frightening. And like the show is about, the show when it was on had a very diverse cast. And it talked a lot about what a lot of kind of children's educational type shows were about, which was inclusion and creativity and having fun and learning and listening and all that stuff. But I can't get over the chicken lady on here and her face.
Is that like from Kids in the Hall, the chicken lady?
Yeah. She just has this beak on her face, and it's just that is so frightening to me. And maybe kids don't see it.
Yeah.
Maybe they're I can separate that out as a character, but man, it's just so bizarre to look at. One other thing that really bothered me is the Ben Vereen character. He is named, let's see. Okay.
Chicken
One
George.
thing, I'm going to restart that. One thing that really bothered me is the Ben Vereen character. He played Mayor Ben, who's a leopard, and he's the mayor of Zoobilee Zoo.
Elected, I guess.
I don't know. I'm concerned about the politics of this world. Like, there is something very strange about being the mayor of a zoo.
Yeah.
Are these guys all trapped in there? Do they have to vote for him?
Mm-hmm.
Is he stuffing the box? Is he kind of corrupt in a weird way? I don't know. I don't know what's going on there.
What does he preside over? Is there a city commissioner as well who actually administers all the mayoral
Talkatoo
policies?
Cockatoo is the city commissioner. Bravo Fox is, I don't know. It's just like one of those shows that, like, it wasn't on very long, only a couple of years. And, it's funny. We talked about Teletubbies being merchandise to hell. This show had no merchandise at all. Like, it was almost, they intentionally wanted it to be a educational show. And they didn't, like, I think the Hallmark Channel was one of the owners of it or one of the first investors on it. And they all kind of purposefully didn't push this as something to be merchandised. And I think that could be one of the reasons why, 1986, 87, 88, everything had a toy version of it.
Sure.
From like Sesame Street.
I mean, a lot of, as we've talked about before, a lot of shows are actually created with the toys in mind first, and then they just came up with the show after that.
Yeah. One of the writers of the show, or one of the creators said, it was pre-Barney, and basically we had 6 Barneys. They had like an offer to build an entire theme park, but Hallmark turned them down.
Wow.
And they just never kind of took off from there. So it's like this little niche of a show that just like was only on for a couple of years, but just so strange. I don't know.
He said Steve Binder was one of the producers who produced Pee-wee's Big Adventure and Elvis Comeback Special and Star Wars Holiday Special and the Tam Show. And all
Boy,
these crazy
he's been
things.
involved with that's a pretty broad career right there.
Yeah.
That's a lot of hits and a lot of misses.
A lot of hits and misses, but he was a variety show producer. What is it? Do you think LeVar Burton and Ben Vereen sit down at the bar and go, why the fuck we got to do all this stuff?
Yeah.
Why were we both in Roots and now we're like doing this incredible drama? Now we're the friendly face of this show.
Maybe they're sitting there and they're just like Rochambeauing for who goes next.
Yeah,
I think that's what's happening. Yeah.
1, 2, 3. Okay. All right. You're now a cat person.
Yeah. Oh,
Okay,
man.
so I'm gonna get the next one where I read to kids. That sounds boring.
Michael B. Jordan, you're next. Yeah. Okay. Richard, go.
All right, so my second one is, you know what the kids love, by the way, Jeff? They love a man in a nude bodysuit.
Oh,
with a
good body.
with a good body.
Also on my
Oh,
list.
slim good body.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. It had to be. This may have been where I got the idea for this in the first place. Slim Goodbody, for those of you who weren't familiar, started off on the Captain Kangaroo Captain Kangaroo show.
He did?
Yeah, he was on there would come on a couple of times a week, and then they eventually spun him off to his own PBS show, Inside Story.
Well, let's
back up here for a second.
quickly because let's talk about the premise of the show. Is let's put a Richard Simmons ass looking guy in a skin tight bodysuit and have him talk to little children about their bodies.
And by the way, not just a bodysuit. Have it be painted like a visible or one of the Visible Man cutaway things.
Yes, your organs, bones, the whole Megillah.
Wiener.
Everything except the wiener.
Yeah.
Oh, I imagine
no
that.
wiener.
That was my imagination.
That it was.
Oh,
that's your bodysuit.
That's my
Jeff.
okay.
We can all agree that the 70s were just awful.
Okay, counter.
Ooh.
Is
The 70s were good.
the 70s were good. As somebody who was in college in the 70s. Is it important? What's wrong about the human body?
There's nothing wrong.
Okay.
Idealistically, the show is about science and it's about the human body, and these are important.
Learning
things.
how to eat healthily.
Yes,
and
all important things. But at some point, there's just the image is just so
frightening.
Yeah.
frightening that like you couldn't have taken like the kind of 10,000-foot view of it and been like, look, I know this is I know this is important. Science is important. Education is important. The human body is important. Knowing what your body does is important. But like the skinny guy in a bodysuit
With a big white afro. I remember. I'm old enough to remember this when I was a kid. The show, the Inside Body, was like 80 to 82, so I would have been like 6 when it ended. And so even at 6, I kind of remember thinking, that's kind of creepy. even like, I mean, obviously it was a very successful show. He's gone on to basically make a career out of this, going on tour, doing live shows. He still does it to this day.
Yeah.
It's just, it's become something that I think we sort of like, oh, almost like Richard Simmons, where we just sort of accept him as like this weird, like sort of pop ephemera, sort of like, like Mummenschanz or something. It's just sort of out there in the wild.
Yeah.
And we don't sit down and think about, if you were to pitch this show, you would be arrested. You wouldn't just be turned down. There would be like people like calling the cops and hey, keep an eye on this guy.
Yeah.
He came here. He showed up in a nude bodysuit that had like his heart. It looked like one of those Body Works things, but in real life, it was kind of creepy. That's what would happen.
Yeah. Do you think sentiment regarding the bizarre nature of these shows is shared by the young people who watch them? Or do you think kids sit down and they watch Tinky Winky and they watch all this stuff and they think, what the fuck? It's colorful things. What do you want from me? Or they think of Mr. Goodbody and they think, you know what? It's a body. It's not freaking me out.
I think here's my take on this. Don't want to jump in, Michael, but I think that it was different in the early 80s when you couldn't just go on the internet and look up, hey, here's what the pancreas looks like. And here's a video of someone getting surgery on a pancreas.
Yeah.
I mean, my son, I spent several hours today. Not several hours. We spent like an hour today. He wanted to look up preserved animals and like stuff like that on the internet. He's 5. He knows that you can, if he wants to see what like a
taxidermy
type thing looks like. So the range of things that you can see and the access to educational stuff like that is so much easier for a kid today versus me as a 6-year-old back in 1982. Unless it was like in an encyclopedia that might have had one of those,
the
like
plastic
the
overlays.
things. That might have been about it. So learning more about your body in 1982 was harder. So this was probably more fun and educational.
I think it definitely exists in a baby boomer generation. Like it exists in a post. Like if you think about what education was in schools before something like this. Like obviously nothing like this has ever been on TV in this sort of graphic and openly discussed way. But you think about like before the kind of cultural revolution of the 60s, and you think about, everything that was taught through school was done in like a cartoon, black and white, film reel.
Sure.
Everything's
your body and you.
Yeah, everything. The subject is kind of danced around, but I think this is a little bit more straightforward, and though a little kind of weird, probably more honest and open, and probably more healthy.
Yeah.
My final point is like this guy, John Bernstein, definitely makes up like the weirdo triumvirate of the 70s with Richard Simmons and Doug Henning. Right?
Yeah.
Like those 3 guys, if you put them like, they form to make like
a Voltron,
like a Voltron of just weird 70s guys. Is it like somehow like have still? I think Doug Henning is.
I feel like they're all characters that would have been played by Martin Short on SCTV at some point.
Yeah. Okay, we are at our halftime, and at this point, I want to employ. I might have to employ you, the audience, but I will implore you first before I have to pay you to go to iTunes, go to Stitcher, and leave a comment and leave a rating for our podcast, the Mount Rushmore Podcast. It's a great way for other audience members who may be searching for something like this to find us and connect with us, like you have. So would appreciate 5-star rating if you feel like being generous, and leaving some kind of comment about what type of shows you'd like to see in the future. And another great place to do that is our social media profiles out on Twitter, out on Instagram, and out on Facebook. Other people who have left comments in the past have become guests on our show. You don't have to be, but you can help craft the podcast and its direction by leaving a comment as something you've liked or a suggestion for a future show topic. Another thing that could happen is you could support podcasting in general by supporting some of the other up-and-coming emerging artists like ourselves who are out there, and we like to support them by sharing their promos. Here's a good one.
Hey everybody, I'm Stephen Pappas.
And I'm Julie Ken.
And we are the host of the Meddling Kids Podcast, a review of all things Scooby-Doo.
We are going through every episode in the Scooby-Doo canon to explain all the questions you meddling kids have.
Right, exactly, like, is Fred a serial killer? How old is Fred exactly?
Why does Daphne have such bad posture?
Where do these kids live, and is pot legal there?
Where is this place? I think it's Florida. Anyway, stick with us for the Meddling Kids podcast, a groovy review of all things Scooby-Doo.
Also, hey guys, I got something free for you. If you're listening to this on your birthday, consider it your birthday present. If it's on a major holiday, consider it our gift to you. And that is a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out Audible. That's right, listeners of the Mount Rushmore podcast can go to audibletrial.com/Rushmore and choose from one of the over 180,000 titles that they have there for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. Or you can play it on that TV that exists in your stomach. With Audible, you could check out Street Gang, The Complete History of Sesame Street by Michael Davis and Carol Spinney. That's there on Audible. That's a kid's show with, I guess, a not-so-bizarre premise. To download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/Rushmore. Again, that's audibletrial.com/Rushmore for your free audiobook. Okay, here's a premise. 3 white guys. Spend a couple hours together in a room. It's hot. It's kind of humid in the room. They just talk about stuff. They
this
argue.
is every podcast.
Oh, yeah. It's every day.
Then their shirts come off and they're just naked with all their body parts just sort of dangling out there.
I love it. I love it. You know what? You know who should watch this? Kids.
Kids.
Yes, kids. Okay. Okay. Richard, you guys both agreed on the Mr. Goodbody, so you're going up next.
Slim Goodbody.
Slim Good.
Don't
Mr. Goodbody.
I guess they do call him Mr. Goodbody.
You're thinking about looking for Mr. Goodbar.
They call
is what
me
you're
Mr.
thinking.
Tibbs. They call me Diane Keaton looking for Mr. Goodbar.
So my third one, perhaps the greatest ever kids show involving castrated chimpanzees. Lancelot Link, Secret Chimp.
Wow.
This was, I remember they would start, I caught this, I think Nickelodeon started running them in the 80s. And just thinking, this is the weirdest shit I've ever seen.
Wow.
It was a series that ran from 1970 to 1971. Was one of the most expensive kids shows of the time ever created. They had $1 million budget for a season of this.
Wow.
Because you
monkeys ain't cheap.
That's all whiskey for chimps.
Pretty much. The whole plot line is basically, here's the pitch line, I think. It was, you remember Get Smart? Let's do that with chimpanzees.
Yeah.
No, not cartoon chimpanzees, like real chimpanzees. Oh. Now they'll have gum in their mouth, so it looks like they're talking, and we'll improv some dialogue on it. It's like What's Up, Tiger Lily, but with chimpanzees.
Chimps.
You know, he kind of looks like he could have been on our Mount Rushmore of Sherlock Holmes. Because
Lance Link, he's got a little bit of the Sherlock Holmes look to him.
Yeah, he looks like a smart detective, Chimp.
Yeah, so the premise was they would just film these chimpanzees dressed up in different characters and have them. Most of them, they were trained so that if the off-screen trainer went with his hand did the talking motion, they would move their mouths like up and down. The lead chimpanzee, who was what was his name? Is Tonga, who played Lance Link. Actually, they had to have gum in his mouth to get him to do it. I don't know if ASPCA would approve of that anymore.
It was in his contract. He wasn't just going to respond to some guy off stage.
He had a writer on that.
What do you think? I'm some kind of trained monkey.
And so the plot was basically Lance Link was a secret chimp working for APE, the agency to prevent evil.
That's good.
With his partner Mata Hari, and of course they all had like bad like pun names like that, and they were going up against Chimp, which is the criminal headquarters for the underworld's master plan. And
how long was this show on?
It was like about 6 months. But they also were in a rock band that they would occasionally cut to songs of theirs called the Evolution Revolution, which was basically the chimpanzees dressed up as quote unquote hippie rock stars, and then they just have some bubblegum pop of the era sort of playing behind them, and you could see them trying to like monkey mime to these songs.
Good grief.
And Bernie Koppel voiced a lot of the characters on this of Love Boat fame.
Wow. Wow.
They actually had to improv a lot of the dialogue because
really?
Well, they could. They couldn't even go off.
The chimps didn't know their own dialogue. They didn't learn the lines beforehand.
It.
They had to they had to like match it up to like whatever they could get the mouths
lip
to do,
flaps,
which
yeah.
a lot of times they would just randomly like start singing song lyrics at the end of a line because they just needed it to match up.
Lip flaps should be the name of the podcast.
Or a band.
Or a band, yeah. Well, yeah, I remember Lip Flaps.
Wasn't that a Riot Girl? That's like a Riot Girl band from the 90s, right? Lip Flaps.
The guy, one of the guys.
I do appreciate a show that you can get the entire series on one DVD.
Yeah, that's helpful. One of the Get Smart writers helped create it.
Yeah, exactly. So it was very much like a Get Smart type
Can
thing.
you imagine, like, hey, you know that James Bond series that's in cinema and everybody loves? Yeah, we're gonna do a TV show about that. It's with Don Adams. Okay, that'd be dumb. Hey, remember that Don Adams show that was really shitty? Yeah, we're gonna do Monkeys.
That was not shitty. Get Smart was not shitty.
Get Smart was a knockoff.
It was, but it was very smart and well done.
Yeah. Okay.
I would argue that it's not
Okay.
shitty.
Okay, but it's
I'm
a knockoff of a knockoff.
Mad. I'm getting a little mad now about it.
Oh,
aren't
good. No need to take off your shirt, sir.
I? I'm presenting myself to Jeff as flinging my feces at him.
I'm gonna bare my teeth.
They actually did have all the males castrated a couple of days before the show started.
Well, that's how regular TV works.
Yeah.
The cast of Friends.
All castrated?
All castrated.
Huh. Well, you don't want them, you said you don't want them to present
No.
at Courtney Cox
No.
or something like that. Apparently it didn't work, and they were still constantly like fucking and fighting with each other the entire time.
Same as Friends.
And one of the problems that they had is when the honchos from ABC came on the set one day, Tonga, the main Lance Link, who portrayed Lance Link in the series, went kind of nuts and bit his veterinarian in front of the staff.
Oh, dear.
So that was the part of the beginning of the end.
Yeah. Wow.
But it's just, again, this is just one of those premises where, like you said, it's let's do a kids rip-off version of Get Smart.
Mm-hmm.
But what can we do that makes it a little bit special? Oh, I know, chimpanzees.
Okay.
Well,
Because working with animals even easier than working with kids.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me ask you: was this for kids, or was this for adults?
It was for kids.
Was it?
I believe it was.
Oh, okay. Because there's some of those shows that, like Gilligan's Island or whatever, that for the Flintstones, that aired in prime time, and then kids end up watching them.
No, it was definitely aimed for like maybe the teenage to slightly younger crowd.
Oh, okay.
That's why they had the Evolution Revolution band playing.
Yeah.
You had the bubble pop hits of the day.
Mhm.
I can't wait for the gritty HBO remake of this show. That is set for an adult audience. That's a feature prime time.
I love you. Look at the credits. Andy Serkis is everyone in the Lancelot Link show. Wow, cool.
It's just called Link.
Link.
Yeah.
Okay, Michael, you're last.
My final choice. It's short back end on this episode.
Hot.
Thing. Pee-wee's Playhouse,
Oh,
where
love
the
it.
premise is, just crazy.
Daddy,
That's it.
it's cuckoo.
Let's.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
The show is just about having fun and silliness and a man-child's world of talking everything.
Yeah.
The original version of this had a chimpanzee playing Pee Wee Herman.
There you go.
So
We've talked about Pee-wee a little bit on our big comebacks episode, but his comeback was after the show had gone off the air and after the show was like wrapped up. His dalliances in an adult theater didn't force the show to go off air. It had been off the air, or at least new episodes off the air for like a year.
Yeah.
Like it was probably in syndication, but they had kind of wrapped up their 45 episodes. They'd gone on for 5 years. They did what they wanted to do. And what they wanted to do is create a show that was just kind of madcap and fun and zany.
Yeah.
And kind of could be for kids, could kind of be for teens, could kind of be for an adult. Like any person watching it could kind of appreciate it for all the different types of humor that were on the show. It was a Saturday morning cartoon on CBS, and it was very successful, and it had a lot of strange characters, whether they were kind of claymation dinosaurs or the claymation penny sort of shorts. They had all these little shorts that you never knew what you were going to get with every week. And, like all these kind of children's shows, they all had a lesson. I could not tell you a single lesson that was learned from watching Pee-wee, but, it was just a fun, zany show. And I think it really kind of showed off one man's kind of talent, so to speak.
I always loved the Pee-wee because it seemed like it also it had some diversity where you might not expect it. With Lawrence Fishburne as is it Cowboy Curtis? I forget what the character. And these characters are all kind of larger than life, but people kind of cast against type. The king of cartoons was this older kind of Dracula-looking kind of guy, and also I love the set. It seemed like it featured a lot of kind of outsider art. There was a lot of weird, almost a children's TV show set as filtered through the New York hipster art scene.
I was dipping into like the, like we do almost every episode, dipping into like the Wikipedia of whatever, and they were talking about like the art direction on the set, and I guess on like the first day of shooting or the first day of like set production, the kind of master builders were there to say, okay, well, do you guys have the plans for what you want the sets to look like?
By the way, also the masturbator was there.
Yeah, and the kind of creators of the show and the writers, small high five over there, were kind of like, hold on, give us a few minutes, we'll drop.
Yeah.
The set looks like it was built in a few
the last,
hours.
Yeah.
It looks like just hodgepodge and thrown together, and it was. I do like that. It feels like a kid's playhouse.
Yeah,
it's bits and pieces of everything. It's a person who's into everything all at the same time, and from any moment he can go from his globe to his big dumb chair to his ants that are in the thing to his talking fruit in the refrigerator to the mount. Like everything is just like, as a kid, like I see a lot of this stuff. This is obviously too adult for Felix, but I see a lot of this as like Felix, when he is in like his old pack and play playing with toys, he'll pick up his little toy egg crate thing that has like the goofy faces in it, and 2 seconds later he looks over at his toy truck, and then he tries to put the eggs in the toy truck, and then 2 seconds later he's picking up this book that he can chew on, and then 30 seconds later he's banging away on the little like xylophone thing, and like Pee-wee is very much a character that's just like impulse. I'm going from this to this. I'm frenetic and
and he's definitely he's not the bad kid, because we meet the bad kids, but he's not necessarily the kid who has this who's giving us the lesson. He's kind of learning it along with us.
Right.
And I do feel like Pee-wee synthesized for television what Tim Burton had created for feature film. That was this kind of bizarre world that was very told from that kind of kid's eye point of view, although he's an adult kid. And you couldn't get Tim Burton on TV back then.
Well, and my first kind of introduction to Pee-wee Herman was actually watching him on Letterman.
Oh yeah,
before like Pee-wee's Big Adventure or anything like that. When he was just like this weird character that was a Groundlings character.
Yeah, I think they had been doing the Pee-wee show at Groundlings, and then it led to Paul Rubens having
like a TV special,
having comedy bits where he was not a stand-up, so he'd do stuff like putting tape on your nose or something weird. Yeah,
right. And so it's interesting to me that it's a show that started off developed for adults, and sort of as it got filtered down through these different iterations, it becomes more, I want to say kid targeted, I guess, even though that still retained.
I would say definitely is.
Even though it still retained that sort of nod, wink, wink sort of thing that let the adults know that it was, hey, this is also for you as well.
Yeah.
It reminded me, it's like a Funhouse version of like the Soupy Sales show.
Yeah, I was going to say Soupy, yeah.
You could see all these shows that I'm sure Paul Rubens watched as a kid. We mentioned Captain Kangaroo earlier. That, or Howdy Doody, or the Bozo the Clown show, all that kind of like where it's like a single character and go into their wacky world.
Yeah.
And even today, I know they have the Elmo's World on Sesame Street, which is now taken over like half of the damn show. But that's also this, it feels like a cultural kin to Pee-wee's Playhouse.
Oh, interesting.
Well, that's a fun choice. I do wonder, with all these suggestions, we as adults are interpreting them as bizarre. Children who do not have a 30-year tested template for television, what good storytelling looks like, might just kind of, already their lives are weird. Like, I think as a kid, like, you try to explain Easter to a kid. Like, a rabbit delivers eggs, but we dyed these eggs 3 days ago. Now you're going to hide them in our house. Like, the world is a crazy, weird place. So I wonder, if kids just kind of go with the flow and say, at least it's not news.
Okay, now, yeah. Can I ask Richard? Like in a few years, I'm sure I'm going to be hiding Easter eggs for my child. So you dye them all together. How do you? How do you explain to your child that the same eggs that you hid, does the Easter Bunny come by and pick them up?
You use different eggs.
That's a lot of trouble.
See, we do. Guys, turn off the
Kids?
turn off the podcast if Simon's listening. We do the kind of decorating of the actual eggs, like the hard-boiled eggs, as a separate thing. We just we do that. That's our a family activity. But then the Easter Bunny comes and
is it Ben Vereen dressed up as the Easter Bunny?
And he
singing
tap
the
dances.
thing from Pippin. We've got magic to do for me and you.
The kids hear him tap dancing outside. They know it's Easter, but we hide like the plastic eggs, and we'll put little candies or maybe some coins or whatever we're gonna give the kids.
Summons to appear in court.
Little
nuts.
airplane bottles of whiskey. No, whatever we're gonna put in there for the kids.
Little poppers.
Ooh. Somehow we managed to make it to the very end without talking about the world of Sid and Marty Krofft.
Oh wow! Okay, yeah.
And you could have done. I could have done the wheel and just spun and just picked one. But HR Pufnstuf.
I've never seen anything outside of Land of the Lost by those guys.
Really?
Oh, really?
It totally passed me by. It never. So I have no reference. Like I only have reference of them as images, but I don't know anything. Sigmund and the Sea Monster.
Oh, you didn't? Well,
HR Preference. None of that stuff hit me.
I had it because of bad independent TV stations where I grew up that would still air them on reruns.
Really?
30 years later, or what have you.
Yours is HR Pufnstuf?
HR Pufnstuf, yes. I'm going to try to lay out the plot. It's basically a stranger in a strange land type story. But there's a boy who's been shipwrecked, and he has a talking flute, and he is taken on a boat ride to a kooky, wacky island called Living Island.
Is this dream you have? Do you have it repeatedly? This dream.
And then I'm having sex with my mother.
Are you talking? Is this flute something you are holding on to? You put your mouth to the tip of this flute?
Sometimes the flute's just a flute, Jeff.
It's sometimes Sigmund Freud.
And it turns out that there's a witch called Wilhelmia W. Witchypoo, who had given the boat there and caused this all to happen because she wanted the talking flute for herself.
Just like the sea hag from Popeye.
Yeah.
However, there was a anthropomorphic dragon named HR Pufnstuf who was able to find out about the plot, and along with these Cling and Clang, who kind of look like the Hamburglar a little bit, crossed with like a Bobby. We're able to rescue the kid and take him back to HR Pufnstuf's cave, where the witch's magic doesn't have any effect.
This is the plot of Twelfth Night by William Shakespeare.
I think it's also. I thought it was the Seventh Sign.
Ingmar Bergman.
HR Pufnstuf was the mayor of this place too.
He was also the mayor. There's a lot of political intrigue in these shows.
We could do a dark reboot, a la
Chris Nolan,
and
a political thing.
And I'm trying to explain. I would, if you haven't seen what HR Pufnstuf looks like, they say that he's a dragon. There is no possible way he's a dragon. He looks like a kind of like a Pac-Man. Yeah, but like if crossed with like a melting clown. That's roughly what I would say.
Girl, those cowboy boots do not work for him.
And the whole world is it's the Sid and Marty Krofft world where everything is way too bright and psychedelic. And they tried to claim that this show wasn't about drugs. The show is called HR Pufnstuf, for God's sakes. Yeah. Like, they can deny it all they want. We all know what the deal was. This was made in the 70s. Part of the Krofft Superstars banner. All these shows were heavily under the influence of some fine weed, I'm sure, if not more.
Mm-hmm. Do you, again, I do remember as a child thinking this was pretty fucking trippy, that Sesame Street seemed a lot more grounded, that even though I loved fantasy, that this seemed like they were force-feeding psychedelic colors through the cathode ray right into my brain.
It's just so different looking than anything else, and the acting's all uniformly really bad.
Yeah.
From the kids to the people in the costumes.
Mm-hmm.
And so everything is just very like stock theater, which kind of almost enhances sort of the slowness and the trippiness of it all.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they would always have because they're on the living island, anything could become an animate object at any time, and they always sort of if something again, they would take on the personas of like Edward G. Robinson or Mae West or something like that.
Because of course,
Because the kids, they love the actors from the 1930s. Yeah. I don't know what was going on with that. I don't know what's going on with any of this. I just remember being a kid, and again, it was on the local Channel 53, the local independent station in Fresno, and it was just, you would contrast it to even what was in the 80s, like what they were showing, like the more conventional modern stuff. And it just felt like it was something from not just another time, but like another culture.
Yeah.
Just felt so weird.
You know, one thing so there's Sigmund and the Sea Monsters was another Sid and Marty Krofft
with Johnny Whitaker.
Yeah. Like what that is, he's literally a fish out of water, because he's like in a home with some actual kids and things like that. He's like, it's almost like Alf. He's this puppet thing. He's this alien that lives in a home with H.R. Pufnstuf. It's Jack Wilde's character is the one who's out of water.
Right.
But it feels like there's no when everything is fantastical, it's almost like there's nothing stands out, because it's just every crevice is filled with this kind of weird alive creatures and things like that. That's why I felt like H.R. Pufnstuf was a sugar overdose. It was like eating a Twinkie and then washing it down with high C, fruit punch.
Jolt Cola or something. Yeah,
just I remember.
Well, Sid and Marty Krofft started off doing the puppets, at least for the
Olympics
costumes.
Or the World's Fair.
Well, that's where H.R. Pufnstuf got started, but they actually got their start on the Banana Splits.
Oh, they did?
Which almost made my list, the Banana Splits of Tra-La-La fame.
Yeah.
And again, that was another show that was just, the way it was shot was so like, it was almost like shot, like, it felt like it had been shot like at a faster speed and then slowed down and then sped back up again, and everything was like too bright and oversaturated. And they just sort of took that and just ran with it.
Yeah. The McDonald Land characters that I recall as a kid that we all see.
Immediately I thought of the Big Mac.
Yeah, Mayor McCheese and Grimace.
Looking at these pictures.
Guess McDonald's approached Sid and Marty Krofft to do these characters for them.
Really?
And they said, sure, we'll do it for this large amount of money. And McDonald's said, fuck you very much. We're going to go make our own. And then Sid and Marty Krofft sued their asses because it was exactly H.R. Pufnstuf that they created these characters that look just like their characters. So.
Yeah. The two cop guys are basically the Hamburglar.
Yeah. Guys, this was amazing. This is amazing. I love not only are we judging these shows based on how time has placed them, we're also judging them as adults looking back and analyzing something that children are watching. It's kind of created for children. But you know what? Weird is weird.
Yep.
And when you can just smell weird on stuff. And I think even as a kid, I remember seeing Mr. Goodbody or whatever and going, this fucker's like, this is like the guy who sits in the parking lot at our school.
Mr. Goodbody sounds like a bad mafia.
It does.
Don't go see Mr. Goodbody if it's good for you.
Yeah. So thank you for all your great suggestions. Here are the ones that stood out for me. Pee-wee. Loved Pee-wee. Sid and Marty Krofft. Michael, your scathing indictment of Teletubbies.
I took them down.
I took them down.
Entire peg.
Congratulations, you're now a late '90s stand-up comedian, Michael. Good job.
Guess what, Fanta girls? You bitches are next. I want any
Macarena guys. I got you in my sights.
Yeah. And just because it made me laugh so goddamn much to think about it and how much as a kid I actually kind of liked it, Jabberjaw. So this has been the Mount Rushmore of bizarre children's television show premises. I, as always, am Wacky McCookesville.
I don't get no respect.
I'm Michael. You will not lure me into